My name could be anyone's, because this story, though unique to me, reflects a universal truth that we should all know. It all started on what seemed like an ordinary day, one of those days that slip through your fingers without a trace, or at least that's what I thought at the time. I vividly remember how the sky was tinted orange hues as I drove back home after a grueling day at the office. The traffic was especially chaotic that day, an endless snake of vehicles snaking through the city streets. Horns honked like an urban cacophony, and my car's air conditioning struggled against the persistent afternoon heat. I tried to stay calm as I stared at the clock on the dashboard, thinking about all the tasks still awaiting me at home. That's when everything changed in an instant, in one of those moments that divide your life into a before and an after. The sharp screech of tires skidding on asphalt tore through the air, and before I could process what was happening, I felt a devastating impact that shook every fiber of my being. Time seemed to stop. Sounds faded away as if someone had gradually turned down the volume of the world. My body went still, as a wave of intense pain spread from my chest to my extremities. I was aware of distant voices, muffled screams, and the sound of breaking glass, but it all seemed to occur in another dimension, as if I were observing the scene from outside my own body. As consciousness slipped through my fingers like water, images from my life began to appear before my eyes, as if someone was quickly turning the pages of a book full of photographs. I saw my mother smiling as she made me breakfast in my childhood. I remembered the first day of school, my college graduation, the hugs of my loved ones, the shared laughter with friends, and also the moments of pain and missed opportunities. Suddenly, everything was plunged into a deep, absolute darkness. But it was not a terrifying darkness. On the contrary, I felt an inexplicable peace, a tranquility that I had never experienced before. It was as if all the problems, worries, and anxieties that I had accumulated throughout my life had dissolved into that comforting blackness. And then I saw it, a light. It was not like any light I had ever seen before in my life. It was not the sun, nor a lamp, nor a reflection. It was a light that seemed to be alive, pulsating with an energy of its own, and emanating a love so pure and deep that it took my breath away. The light began to approach, or perhaps it was me who was approaching it. It is difficult to say for sure in that state where physical laws seemed not to exist. That was when I heard the voice. A voice that resonated not only in my ears, but in every particle of my being. It was gentle and powerful at the same time, masculine yet maternal, ancient yet eternally new. "Come, my child," the voice said, and I felt my heart recognize that call as if I had been waiting for it all my life. The light began to take shape, and before me appeared the figure of a man. His appearance was simple, without ornamentation or grandeur, but he emanated a heavenly glow that made him seem more real than anything I had ever seen before. His eyes contained entire universes of compassion and wisdom. I knew immediately, with a certainty that went beyond reason, that I was in the presence of Jesus. His smile enveloped me in a feeling of indescribable warmth, as if every cell of my being was bathed in pure love. There was no judgment in his gaze, only infinite understanding and total acceptance of who I was, with all my imperfections and mistakes. In his presence, I felt completely known and, at the same time, completely loved. "You have questions," I said. And his voice sounded like heavenly music, as if each word were a complete symphony. "I am here to show you something important." I didn't need to speak. My thoughts and doubts were transparent to him. With a gentle gesture, the space around us was transformed, and we found ourselves in the middle of a field filled with people. It was an extraordinary scene. I saw people of all ages, races, and walks of life interacting with each other with a joy and harmony that seemed to belong to another world. Some were sharing food, others were hugging, some were simply chatting, but in each interaction there was a special quality, a light that was transmitted from person to person. "This is love of neighbor," Jesus explained, and I could feel how each word resonated with a fundamental truth. It is the greatest virtue that humanity can possess, the most precious gift that you can share with each other. As I looked out at the scene, I began to feel a deep sadness as I remembered all the times I had walked past someone in need of help, all the times I had been too busy or distracted to show compassion. Jesus placed his hand on my shoulder, and with that simple gesture, I felt he fully understood my regret. His gaze conveyed a message more powerful than any words. Compassion is the very foundation of the soul, the foundation on which every meaningful human experience is built. As we continued our heavenly journey, Jesus began to show me different scenes from around the world. I saw moments of extraordinary beauty, families united helping their neighbors during natural disasters, strangers risking their lives to save others during emergencies, entire communities coming together to support those most in need. But I also witnessed moments of darkness, small acts of selfishness that set off waves of pain and division, missed opportunities to show love that resonates with others. They resulted in loneliness and suffering. Every act of kindness, Jesus explained with a serenity that penetrated to the very core of my being, sends ripples of light into the world. Like a stone thrown into a pond, its effects expand far beyond what we can see. Before my eyes, I could watch seemingly insignificant actions have a ripple effect, spreading from person to person, creating an invisible web of connections and transformations. My heart sank as I realized how many times I had underestimated the impact my actions, or lack thereof, could have on others. Every smile not returned, every kind word not spoken, every gesture of help not offered, represented a missed opportunity to add light to the world. Jesus then led me into a different space, one where light seemed to dance and shine with an almost blinding intensity. There, as if on a heavenly screen, scenes from my own life began to appear. I saw times when I had chosen to ignore a friend who needed comfort, times when I had been too busy to listen to someone who just needed to be heard, situations where I had chosen the easy way out instead of doing the right thing. Free will is a divine gift, Jesus said in a voice that blended love and wisdom, but with it comes the responsibility to choose to love. Every decision you make is like a small stone that, together with others, forms the path of your life. As he spoke, I recalled a particular occasion when I had helped a stranger with a simple gesture, a smile, and a few words of encouragement in a difficult time. At the time it had seemed like an insignificant thing, but now I could see how that small act had set off a series of positive events in that person's life. Jesus' face reflected infinite understanding as he showed me how each small decision contributed to the building of a new world. Greater, something that transcended my own existence. Every heart you touch, he murmured with indescribable tenderness, is a reflection of my love for you. At that moment, Jesus reached out his hand and touched my face with infinite gentleness. Before my eyes appeared the image of a woman sitting alone on a park bench. I vaguely recognized her. I had seen her once, long ago, as I hurried past on my way to work. She needed your help then, Jesus said without a hint of reproach in his voice, only infinite compassion. But you didn't notice it. The scene expanded, and I could see how this woman had eventually found help in someone else, but the experience of feeling invisible and alone had marked her deeply. It's never too late to learn to love more deeply, Jesus added, and his voice was heavy with hope and promise. I could feel in my own being the weight of the loneliness that this woman had experienced, but I also witnessed the healing power that true love can bring. An overwhelming desire to go back and do things differently began to grow inside me, like a seed that finally finds the light after a long winter. Jesus smiled, and in that smile was a deep understanding. You have understood, he said, and that is the beginning of everything. It was then that I began to feel a strange sensation, as if my consciousness was being pulled back somewhere. The outlines of the heavenly world I had been experiencing began to gently blur. Your time is not over yet, Jesus said as his figure began to fade. You have the opportunity to change, to do things differently. The sense of peace and light that had enveloped me began to gradually fade, replaced by more mundane sounds, the rhythmic beeping of medical machines, anxious voices speaking in whispers, the sound of hurried footsteps on a floor of linoleum. Slowly, My eyelids began to open, and I found myself in a hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and family members with worried faces. Tears began to roll down my cheeks, but this time they were not tears of pain or fear, but of deep gratitude and renewed purpose. At that moment, I made a silent promise to myself. I would practice kindness with more intention and awareness, keep my eyes and heart open to the needs of others, and never again underestimate the power of an act of love, no matter how small it seemed. The next few days in the hospital were a period of deep reflection. While my body slowly recovered, my mind and spirit underwent an even more significant transformation. Every interaction with the nurses, every visit from friends and family, every moment of solitude became an opportunity to practice what I had learned in my encounter with Jesus. Finally, the day came to go home. I left the hospital not only with a recovering body, but with a completely transformed heart. I began to get involved in community activities, volunteering my time at soup kitchens, listening to those society had left voiceless, sharing not only material resources but also love and understanding. Every smile I received, every hug of gratitude, every tear shared reminded me of the vision I had had of Jesus and the transformative power of shared love. My friends and family noticed the change in me, asking me what had happened during my near-death experience. I simply replied, I understood the true purpose of life. As the days passed, I discovered a profound truth. In giving, I received much more than I gave away. Not in material terms, but in a joy and inner peace I had never before experienced. My nights, once filled with worries about work and obligations, were now filled with joy and inner peace. They were illuminated by the memory of that heavenly light and smile that had changed everything in my life. I began to see the world in a completely different way. Every person I passed on the street was no longer a mere stranger, but a precious soul with his or her own story, his or her own struggles, and his or her own needs for love and understanding. I learned to stop, to really listen, to be present in each moment and with each person. Small actions took on new meaning. A simple good morning, accompanied by a sincere smile, holding the door for someone, offering to help an elderly person with their groceries, listening patiently to a friend in trouble. Every gesture, no matter how small, was an opportunity to convey that divine love I had experienced. I also learned to be more compassionate with myself. I understood that love for one's neighbor begins with self love. Not from a place of selfishness, but from the understanding that we are all beloved children of God, worthy of love and respect. This understanding allowed me to be more patient with my own mistakes and limitations, while continuing to strive to grow and improve each day. The difficulties did not disappear from my life. The challenges and moments of pain continued to exist. But I now faced them with a different perspective, knowing that each obstacle was an opportunity to practice love and compassion, to grow in wisdom and understanding. I began to organize support groups in my community, creating safe spaces where people could share their experiences and find comfort in each other. I saw how the love and understanding I had learned from Jesus multiplied through these encounters, touching lives in ways I never would have imagined possible. Sleepless nights were transformed into moments of peaceful reflection, where I reviewed the events of the day and looked for ways to be a better instrument of love the next day. In those quiet hours, I often recalled the light I had seen and the loving presence of Jesus, feeling that each evening was an opportunity to reconnect with that life-changing experience. My daily routine took on a new rhythm and purpose. Each morning began with a prayer of gratitude, not just for being alive, but for the opportunity to serve and love others. The simple act of making breakfast became a moment of meditation on how I could nourish not only my body, but also my soul and those of those around me. I began to notice details that had previously gone unnoticed. The way the cashier at the supermarket hid his tiredness behind a forced smile, the tremor in my neighbor's voice when she spoke of her loneliness, the lost look of the young man who always sat alone in the park. Each observation became an invitation to act, to build bridges of understanding and support. My work, which I had previously seen simply as a means to earn money, was transformed into a practice field for loving my neighbor. I started coming in earlier to help colleagues in need, to truly listen during meetings, to seek solutions that benefited everyone rather than just myself. The office became a space where small acts of kindness could flourish and multiply. Social media, which I had previously used primarily to share superficial moments, became a platform to spread messages of hope and love. I shared not only the joys, but also the lessons learned in difficult times, creating a virtual space where others could feel understood and accompanied. I began to keep a journal where I documented not only the events of the day, but also the small victories in my path of loving my neighbor. Each page was filled with stories of meaningful encounters, moments of genuine connection, and lessons learned. This was a time when I was a little worried about the future. Exercise helped me keep the memory of my experience with Jesus alive and deepen my understanding of true love. Weekends, which I had previously devoted mostly to rest and entertainment, became opportunities to serve in different community projects. I organized reading groups for children at local libraries, visited nursing homes to share time and conversation with those who felt forgotten, and participated in environmental cleanup initiatives, understanding that love for one's neighbor also includes caring for our common home. My relationship with my family deepened in ways I never would have imagined. I learned to see beyond old grudges and misunderstandings, to practice forgiveness not as an obligation but as an act of mutual liberation. Family gatherings were transformed from routine events into precious opportunities to strengthen bonds and heal old wounds. In moments of doubt or tiredness, when the weight of the world seemed too great, I remembered Jesus' words about how each small act of love generates ripples of light in the universe. This realization gave me strength to continue, even when the results of my efforts were not immediately visible. I learned to celebrate the small daily miracles, a reconciliation between friends that I had helped facilitate, a genuine smile on the face of someone who had previously only shown sadness, a thank you, whispered with tears of gratitude. Each of these moments was a reminder that love, when shared sincerely, has the power to transform lives. Over time, my home became a refuge not only for me, but for anyone who needed a safe space to be heard and understood. I kept my door open for friends and strangers alike, sharing not only nourishment for the body, but also for the soul. The conversations around my table became a reminder that love was a source of joy and happiness. They became deeper and more meaningful, touching on issues that truly mattered. My perspective on suffering also changed. I no longer saw pain as something to be avoided at all costs, but as an opportunity to grow in compassion and understanding. Each challenge became an invitation to practice love in a deeper and more authentic way. As the months passed, I noticed how my near-death experience and encounter with Jesus continued to reveal new layers of meaning. Each day brought new opportunities to put into practice what I had learned, to grow in love and wisdom. Gratitude became my constant companion. Gratitude for the second chance I had been given, for each person who crossed my path, for each opportunity to serve and love. This gratitude fueled my desire to live each day fully, to not waste a single moment on things that had no real meaning. I knew that one day I would see Jesus again, and although I no longer feared that moment, my greatest desire was to come to that encounter with hands full of acts of love, with a heart that had learned to truly love. Every day was another step on that path, another opportunity to make the message I had received in that life-changing experience a reality. And so, as life continued on its course, I remained firm in my purpose of being a channel of love and light in the world, knowing that every small act of kindness, every gesture of understanding, every word of encouragement contributed to weaving that invisible web of love that Jesus had shown me. Life had become a sacred mission, a continuous journey toward the deepest and truest love.